We're very grateful to Cayuga Community College for offering us this venue tonight to be able to speak to you about Solarize and what this whole program means. Joining me tonight is another member of our Solarize team, Marian, who's the Business Development Specialist from Cayuga Economic Development Agency, CEDA. We also have a number of other folks who weren't able to make it tonight on our sort of central steering committee, and that includes Keith Batman, who is Cayuga County Legislator for District 7, which includes Springport, Ledger, and Scipio towns. Steve Lynch is the Director of Cayuga County Planning and Economic Development, and two of the planners from his office, John Zepko and David Nelson. We also have Christina Selvig, who is the Director of Capital Projects and Grants for the City of Auburn, Planning and Economic Development, and Denny Zach, who is involved with the Cayuga County Public Utility Services Agency. And we'd love to welcome all of you to join Solarize. This is a community-based, all-volunteer effort. And so if you want to get more involved in making Solarize happen in this area, we'd love to have you join us. There's a sign-up sheet out on the table. A couple of housekeeping details. If you brought food in, there is some, I don't know if you saw them, there's water and cookies out in the hall. Please feel free to help yourself whenever. If you brought it in with you, make sure you take it back out and deal with your waste appropriately. We don't want to make them upset that we used their theater incorrectly. Restrooms, if you're looking for those, and again, if you need to do whatever, you're in charge of your own creature comfort. They are out down the hall, and if you head toward the sort of the block that says commuter services, sort of behind it and to the left, you'll find it. It's on the main hallway there. So let's get started talking about Solarize and what this can mean for you. And I think the first place to start is to do a little myth busting. There are a lot of myths about solar out there, the first being that we don't have enough sun in New York State. This is a solar map put together by the Department of Energy showing the relative gain of sun in different areas around the country. The more red and orange you get, obviously the more sun you get. So you're seeing the Southwest, of course, has a lot of sun. Here in the Northeast, we're tending more toward the green, with Alaska and places in the Northwest verging on sort of the blue, purple, not so much sun territory. And so what does this mean? Does this mean that we don't have enough sun? Well, we don't have as much sun as Arizona, that is true. But what's shown on this map are two countries. In the lower right-hand corner is Germany. Germany, as you can see, is sort of about like Alaska or the Northwest in terms of solar gain. Germany is the solar leader in the world with more installed solar than any other country. Right above it is Spain, which also has some areas in the southern part of the country that are verging more towards what you see in the Southwest, but in the Pyrenees, in the mountains area, looking more like what we have here. So the answer is, yes, we do have enough sun. This is a comparison of the amount of solar that falls on various areas of the country. Obviously San Diego, which was the yellow-red area, red zone, gets a lot more than we do. But if you notice where we fall relative to Seattle, relative to Germany, we get an excellent sun resource. In fact, Central New York gets 75% as much sun as San Diego. Now you can look at that, we only get 75% of the sun of San Diego, or we get 75% of the sun of San Diego. We have a good resource here for solar. Now, of course, we have too much snow, as everyone knows from last year. But there's some issues with snow, but they really don't impact your solar gain because you're getting the least amount of sun in those winter months when you're getting the snow. So there isn't that much snow or sun to miss out on in terms of what we're doing here. So even if your panels do get covered with snow, and they tend to, because they're dark, they do tend to, like a dark roof does, tends to slough snow off a little more readily than a light-colored roof. But even, we don't recommend people go up on their roof and brush it off. If you get snow on the panels, you're not losing out that much. So just let it be, and it will disappear eventually. And we'll see a little bit later in the presentation how net metering actually mitigates against this being any kind of a problem for you. So a lot of people are worried about, what if I jump now and this is going to be like Betamax and the next greatest thing is coming down the pike in another 5 years. The solar industry right now is considered to be a mature industry. Yes, there are still some efficiencies happening, some innovations happening, but it's not expected that it's going to really give you the kind of gain that would say, hold off and wait for the next big thing coming down the pipe. You're best off, and we'll explain why this is the absolute best time to look to go for solar, for a whole host of reasons. Don't worry about the technology piece of it. You're going to get mature technology. And what about glare? Everybody's worried about, well, if I put it on my roof, is my neighbor going to be complaining? Well, yes, they might, but it probably won't be because of glare. Solar panels, by their nature, are designed to absorb light. If they're reflecting light in the form of glare, they're not very efficient. So they're made with low reflectance glass. And these happen to be solar installations at 3 major airports around the country. And in fact, in Tompkins County, there was just a recent installation put near the airport runway. So if the airports are not worried about glare shining on their instrument panels, I don't think you need to worry about it too much. What happens in the event of a fire? Well, probably the least thing you need to worry about is your solar panel system in the event of a fire. But solar systems, again, are designed carefully such that they're all marked and labeled for fire responders to know how to deal with them. There are setbacks to keep them away from venting and roof area, certain sensitive areas, vents and eaves. The equipment is located such that it's not a difficult problem to be able to shut off electrical to it, and there are certainly ventilation options that help mitigate against this. So it's not a worry about fire for solar systems. So let's look at some of the realities about solar. One of the unfortunate realities that we live with here in upstate New York is that we enjoy some of the highest electricity rates in the country. And while we don't like that, it also means that this is a huge opportunity for those of us in the Northeast to look to go solar and reduce those costs. This is a history of what the residential electricity market is doing. It's on average in New York State increasing, some spikes and valleys, but on average you're seeing about a 4% increase per year. That's something you can count on, that you're going to see higher electricity prices over time. This happens to be, I'm a NYSEG customer, this happens to be my electric history for a few years. And I have day rate and night rate, as some of you might have. And if you've ever looked at your electric bill, you're having with the deregulated electricity industry, you have supply and you have delivery. So the delivery rate, this is in the blue on this line, you see has stayed constant for 2 years, and it doesn't expect to change. I mean, there's not major innovations in the lines coming into your house at this point. But you can see that the supply is very, very volatile. And it's largely dependent upon the price of natural gas for creating electricity that's coming through the grid to your home. And even on the night rate, you're seeing that kind of peak and valley. The major valley or the major peak in April 14 was caused by a shortage of natural gas, and so it spiked electricity costs. So again, going solar allows you to flatten out that supply rate. People wonder what's going to happen if I put solar panels on my roof. Am I doing something to negatively impact the value of my home? The fact is, it's the converse. These are figures from California that homes with solar installations tended to sell at least 20% faster and for almost 20% more. There was a recent study done by the Department of Energy's Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Group, EERE, that in fact homes with solar on them were tending to sell more like 50% faster. And if I get this right, in terms of the resale value for your home of doing not just solar, if you have renewable energy, but also if you've done major energy efficiency, anything $1 spent on reducing your energy cost can translate to as much as $20 at the time of resale. So even if you don't go solar, make your house as tight and energy efficient as possible. It's worth your money if at the time you might want to turn it over to someone else. But solar isn't going to negatively impact your value. So there are different solar technologies. Solar photovoltaic, making electricity with the sun. Solar hot water, domestic hot water, using the power of the sun to heat water that you use in your home. And then concentrated solar power. That's not something you're going to see much in the Northeast. Again, sort of in that green area. You're going to see this more in the Southwest, where they have an excellent resource and you can concentrate the sun much more readily. And this is generally done for utility scale. So we're talking about solar photovoltaic for the Solarize program. So let's look at the anatomy of a solar system, a solar energy system, that is. They're first made up of photovoltaic cells. There are a multitude of them in each panel. And the cells are what absorb the sun's energy and convert it into electricity. And basically, when the sun shines on a panel, it's creating watts of electricity that are then generated out and passed into the grid in the form of free electrons. And it's based on kilowatt hours is sort of the measure of your production. And then the solar panels are each ganged into an array. And people want to know, well, how many solar panels am I talking about? And the answer is, it depends on what your energy use is. Which is why the first thing if you decide to go forward, the installers are going to want to know from you is, do you have a current energy bill, electric bill that we can see, so they can figure out what your annual electricity use is. So if you, just for back of the envelope kind of figuring, if you figure one panel is about 250 watts, it would take 4 of them to make 1 kilowatt, 1,000 watts, with me so far. The average home is between 5 kilowatts and 10 kilowatts. So you're going to be looking at some multiplier of potentially 20 panels for a 5 kilowatt system. With me so far? And the panels are about 4 by 6. So these are not small, but they are very powerful. So there are different scales of solar systems out there. Residential, again, I mentioned, is about 5 to 10 kilowatts. Commercial scale can be anywhere from about 50 to 500 kilowatts. The Solarize program for commercial entities is capped at 200 kilowatts, and the residential is capped at 25 kilowatts. If you have a McMansion that's using 25 kilowatts of electricity, you really should be looking at solar. There's also larger scale for commercial, for a factory scale, being 1 megawatt of electricity, or a utility scale upwards of 2 megawatts. And we're not talking about those kinds of sized systems. We're really talking about the smaller systems for homes, farms, and businesses in our area. Now there's different ways that you can, a solar energy system can be tied to the grid or not, as the case may be. One is it's grid tied, that it's your system is on your house or your yard and it's connected into the grid, and so you're feeding energy back and forth. It could also have battery backup. But we're not, through the Solarize program, we're not looking at offering as a standard option a battery backup, but it is something that the installers could talk to you about. And then there's completely off-grid. So if you are looking at a cabin in the woods somewhere and you just want to get enough energy to power, a light at night or something, That again is not something we are looking at in the Solarize program because of some of the incentives that I'll talk about in a minute, and credits that are coming in. These are only for grid-tied systems. Again, it doesn't preclude you from doing a battery backup, but that would be a separate cost and not part of the system, part of the Solarize system, I should say. So how this all works, again, looking at the anatomy of this, is you have solar panels on your roof. That's great, and you have the wires over there somewhere for the electric company. The solar energy system is generating electricity. It's coming down from your roof, and it first goes through an inverter. The energy in a solar system is direct current energy. That's what it's generating. But if you're familiar at all with your appliances, they are all alternating current. So you have to invert the direct current coming off your solar energy system to be able to generate the kind of power that you can use in your home to power your appliances and equipment. And it also then goes through a meter, and we're going to come back to the meter. With the Solarize program, you will get a new meter. You will get a net meter, and we'll talk about what that is. But energy from your system is going to be fed. Anything that you don't use in your home first will feed out into the grid. And if for some reason you are not generating as much energy as you need, electrons come from the grid back in to meet your demand in your home. That's why these are grid tied. So again, there are permutations on solar arrays. They're roof mounted, the most common ones you've seen. Ground mounted, I don't know if how many of you have noticed the new ground mount system that just went in on Dunning Avenue, just past the city line, I think. There's also a new innovation with putting solar on parking canopies. Sort of a great use of an otherwise unclaimed space and creates a nice shaded area underneath it. The two we're really looking at here are roof mount and ground mount, but we won't preclude for, if you're a commercial entity and you're interested, parking canopies are not out of the realm of consideration and are covered by the program. So let's take a look at what Solarize is. We've learned more about what solar energy systems are. So I mentioned this community-based, it's all volunteer. Those of us who are working behind the scenes have just a passion. We want to see more solar installed, specifically Cayuga County. But this is part of a larger 5-county regional effort. So there are people like me and Marian and others in all 5 counties, Cayuga, Cortland, Madison, Onondaga, and here, doing these kinds of workshops, these open houses, to educate you folks who are, thank you, coming out to hear more about solar and thinking about it. Because we want you to get you over the hurdles of, there's just too many barriers to this, or I can't afford it. We want you to realize this is the time financially, and the burden and the hurdles really are not probably what you think. The other benefit to the Solarize program is that we have worked with installers, and I'll come back to this, explain how this happened, to do group purchasing, and so we're getting volume discounting on solar systems that are going to be passed on to you. And hopefully there's a support system for you to make some of your decisions. People you can ask questions of and get answers. And again, we have those of us who are volunteers have no skin in the game. I don't represent any solar company. We don't get any kickback, I don't think, do we? We don't get any kickback or anything else. It's just literally this is a labor of love. We want to see more solar installed in Cayuga County. We think the time is right. So we also realize that we can, through this effort, we can stimulate our local economy. This is some of the reason why we've got some of the economic leaders of the county engaged in this, because they see this as an opportunity, not just for those of us who care about these things to be concerned about the pollution reductions, or just as a homeowner or a business owner to save money, but it also supports green jobs in our region. So let's talk about some of those barriers. Well, of course, first is the high upfront cost. If any of you have ever looked at solar before, you might have run some numbers and like, wow, that's really expensive. I won't live long enough to see a payback on that. Well, we've got some good news for you that we'll get to. So Again, group purchasing, the volume discounting, and also the package of incentives that are available right now are sort of incredible. It's just too complicated to think about going solar. There's a lot to know about solar energy systems. And hopefully with the information that we're giving you, we can get you over that hurdle of thinking, it's just too, am I going to make a mistake because I don't know enough? We don't think so. Again, we have, especially in terms of the area of pre-qualifying installers for you to work with, and doing these workshops and educational sessions and open houses so you can go kick the tires figuratively on somebody's solar installation and ask them questions. Hopefully we can get you through the idea that this is really difficult stuff. It isn't rocket science. It is electrical engineering science, but it is not rocket science. So, and again, getting people over the inertia is always when the tendency of people is if things seem complicated and it's difficult and you gotta go research and do a lot of work, they don't do anything. And again, we want to get you over that hurdle by understanding that the Solarize campaign is short-term. It will expire October 31st. This program will be done. So we're trying to get people to jump now to take advantage of this. And again, I'll talk about why some of those reasons are a little more temporal. And just to give you a little assurance, we're not going this alone. We are almost late to the game in terms of doing the Solarize program here in Central New York or in Cayuga County specifically. These are just a few of the areas that have done Solarize programs before us. This is something that's well known. In fact, the Department of Energy puts out a Solarize guidebook that we've been following, the trail of breadcrumbs of how to do this. Very useful because they all recognize some of these barriers and hurdles that you all feel and want to get folks over them. We do have a history here right in the Central New York area of some successful Solarize programs. Solarize Madison was one of the first in New York State and quite successful a few years ago. Solar Tompkins, which just concluded this last year, was enormously successful. We would love to have that kind of success, and we think we can do it here in Cayuga County. We think the appetite is here and the interest is here. Solarize Syracuse just concluded last year, and there again, they've kind of morphed now into Solarize Onondaga and expanded their focus. They were just they were the city and a few of the suburbs last year, so they've ramped up too. To date, 20 different states have had Solarize programs and the District of Columbia. So we're maybe what seems to be a small little pocket here within the U.S. map. And then again, those are the 5 counties that are part of the CNY Solarize group. But we think this will be one of the largest Solarize campaigns to date in the country. Many of them have been city-based or small area-based. We've got more than 3,500 square miles of ground to cover, 800,000 residents in those 5 counties, 340,000 homes that we'd love to see solar on. Half of them, that'd be nice, a quarter of them would be great. And 60,000 businesses that can benefit from this as well. This is a wonderful time for commercial entities to think about going solar as well. There are incentives for commercial entities that are really tough to turn away. So again, I mentioned we're part of a larger 5-county region. They are, as we speak, I don't even know how many are going on tonight. There are workshops happening all throughout all 5 counties right now. Every week these guys are going crazy. This has been organized by the Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board, which has an energy group within it. And part of their vision for Central New York, their sustainability plan, is to, again, get us to be more energy independent and increase the amount of renewable energy being used and energy efficiency that's being employed in various homes and businesses. There's also a tremendous amount of support from NYSERDA. NYSERDA is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, which is a state entity that helps fund energy efficiency measures, renewable energy programs within the state. And if people are concerned about, more of our tax dollars at work, the fact is you fund NYSERDA. NYSERDA is distributing funds that you have paid in when you pay your electric bill every month. There's something called, if you look at your bill next time, there's something either called System Benefit Charge, SBC/RPS on your bill. Every month you pay a little bit into the NYSERDA pot that then they can collect and use for these kinds of programs. So think about you're getting some of your own back. And again, there I mentioned there's workshops happening all over the place. These are just ours. I commend this to you because you're at a workshop, but if you have friends and neighbors who missed it tonight, here's a list of all of the workshops that are coming up. There's another one coming up at BOCES in about 2 weeks. And there's also some open houses. Again, I mentioned some people just like to go kick the tires, or go ask somebody who's got solar on their roof or on their barn. We have one farm-based solar installation, and he's having an open house this coming Saturday, and a commercial entity coming up. So if you have questions, you want to talk to somebody who's actually done it, come on out to the open houses. But again, please recommend the workshops to your friends and neighbors. Don't let them miss out too. So I mentioned one of the kind of behind the scenes work of the Solarize teams, the Central New York group, was to issue an RFP for proposals for solar installers. We wanted to pre-qualify and vet the installers that we were going to offer to you with the Solarize pricing. So we sent out those requests for proposals as a group. This happened with representation from all 5 counties involved in this earlier this summer. It was sent to more than 30 NYSERDA approved installers in the upstate New York area. Again, we want to generate local green jobs. Now, some of these businesses were literal mom and pop shops. Some of them were national companies that have local offices. So it was a broad range, but we got back 12 what we considered highly qualified proposals, and we waded through them and interviewed 8 of the finalists and selected the installer partners on the middle of July, and then we're off and rolling. We didn't waste any time. We started scheduling their time and our time to set up these workshops. So what were we looking for? I mentioned that NYSERDA approved. Again, NYSERDA is providing some of the incentive funding. They also, in order to take advantage of that, they need to know that the installers know how to work with their documentation and their system. So they needed to be NYSERDA approved, which they all were. NABSTEP, North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners. This means that each of the installers who selected has several, if not a number of these highly qualified electrical experts to be able to oversee the jobs. That was important to us as well. We were looking for experience and qualifications of the installer teams, everything from how they train their employees to the insurance that they can offer, bonding, references, even whether, how they're paying their employees. It seemed like they may have thought it was a little invasive, but we thought it was important to know that they're paying their employees well, so they hold on to them, so they're going to be there if and when you need them down the road. The quality of the equipment was really important to us. We were looking for a mix of different kinds of options for folks, from domestic-made panels to high-quality foreign-made panels, which might have a little bit different price point, but all are going to be doing well in performance for long periods of time. Because these systems are going to be in place for 20, 25 plus years. So we want to know the equipment's going to be up to the time frame needed. We certainly want to know that they have excellent customer service and responsive to any questions that you may have. The fact that they are here with multiple folks is sort of indicative of how important they feel this is to create that relationship with you. They had to agree to the Solarize program. Now, a lot of these folks, you've seen their ads in the paper or heard it on the radio. They're advertising for business all over the place, but there's some benefit to the Solarize program for them that we'll talk about. So they were willing to participate in the program and offer some discounts off their regular pricing and participate in these community outreach and education programs. We also were looking for diverse financing options, and I'll mention those in a moment, and other benefits to the local community. So the two vendors, or the two installers that we have selected for Solarize Cayuga, I mentioned that there were several finalists that were interviewed, and there's a mix within central New York of who can cover what. Some of the installers were really more Syracuse-based or Oswego-based, and so we tried to balance that out, plus balance out what we hope will be an exceptional amount of work for these folks so they can handle it. But we have, tonight we have from Halco, we have all three of you, the three J's, Jacob, Jeremy, and Josh. Do you want to?
No, Jacob, yeah.
Okay, well, Jeremy and Josh are here already, so, and they will be here in the hall. I'm going to have them come up at the end of this and just give you a real brief overview of what they can offer. But then they'll be in the hall to answer your questions. And from Renovis, we have John Allen David, yes, all the way in the back. So again, they will be giving you a little spiel, very brief spiel, and then be available to answer questions. Halco is based in Phelps, New York, but has offices and representation throughout the region. Renovis is out of Ithaca. So these are, you don't have to worry about trying to see this. This sheet is out on the table, one up, and it gives you the information about how to just sort of base costs the solar systems that these folks are proposing. The Solar World from Halco is a domestic-made panel. The Winneco panel from Renovis is German engineered but Taiwanese made, but again, very high quality panel. They all are looking at the same inverter system, and the base price is very similar. And I will tell you that according to NYSERDA, the pricing that these two installers are offering us for the Solarize program is 15 to 20% lower than the state average right now. So again, the bulk discounting is an important feature of the Solarize program to take advantage of. Renovis offers a leasing program, and we'll get to why you might want to consider that. But any of these will be, these folks will give you a full, you don't have to worry about figuring it out for yourself right now. One of the things they will do for you is give you a quote when they do your initial intake. So let's take a look at some of those incentives that I mentioned. Some of them are a little time sensitive, so we want to make sure you take advantage of them. I mentioned that energy costs are going up, but at the same time, the installed cost for solar is going down, which is great. But if it was sort of carried out into the first quarter of 2015, you would see that curve is starting to flatten out. Again, this is a mature technology. There's not major innovations coming, so sort of getting down about as low as you can go without doing some other things like a Solarize program to bring the price down a little bit more on a short-term basis. So the weighted average for New York State looks a little bit higher. This is including big commercial installations and small residential, so it's a little bit higher. But again, you see where that is sort of flattening out now. So let's take a look at what contributes to the whole cost picture of a solar energy system. So if you look at the total installed cost, the hardware is almost a small piece of it, less than half of the cost. And again, we've lessened it a little more through the Solarize program. So what makes up those non-hardware costs, what are called soft costs? Well, for one thing, it's profit taxes and overhead for the installing company. We don't want them to be going broke on this. We think this is what we've negotiated with them for an installed solar per watt cost is very reasonable, and they agree with it. It's reasonable because they're going to get some other things out of it that the Solarize program is helping with. So let's look at that last dark piece. What is all the rest of that? Well, there's lots of paperwork, as you might imagine, with some of these things, especially filing for some of these incentives. Permitting and inspection, trying to get you through with your local municipality if they don't have a permit in place, permitting program on the books. In fact, part of what the Solarize program is doing right now also is working with municipalities to try to get them to adopt a unified solar permit, so this stuff will flow through very quickly. You won't be in maybe one community being the first person to put solar on your house, and the zoning inspector's like, I don't know from solar, and giving you grief about it. So we're working to streamline that. financing costs for the systems. Many of these folks, well, all of these folks are able to offer you, if you go in, and we'll get to the cost, bridge loan financing that will cover the cost until your incentives come back to make them whole. So there's cost for that. Where Solarize is helping is in that big orange piece, the customer acquisition piece. The fact that you folks are in the room is helping these folks tremendously, because getting you to stop long enough to listen and learn about solar and learn about the difference between solar installers is huge for them. So this is part of the value of the Solarize system, is just get you here to learn about it and then start to think and ask questions, get over the hurdles of whatever you have. And then the last piece of it, of course, is the labor. This is not something you want Solarize to be helping you with, and we won't. So. But let's look at some of the other incentives that are out there. There's federal incentives right now. Look at that. I'm not going to go in any depth in the accelerated depreciation. This applies if you're looking for a commercial installation. There is a depreciation. You can actually, a solar system can be depreciated over 5 years, an accelerated depreciation schedule, which could be very favorable for you as a commercial entity. There's also state utility incentives. I'm going to go through all of these fairly quickly, but hopefully we'll answer your questions about it. So the federal investment tax credit, this is one of the biggest booms right now for escalating solar uptake for homes and businesses. Well, at least for homes, I should say, not for profit, but for homeowners. It's 30% of the installation. It comes right off, the cost of it will come right off your tax, your federal tax owed at the end of the year. But this one is going away at the end of 2016. It will step down for commercial to only 10%, and it goes away entirely for homeowners. So this is one we definitely want you to take advantage of, because it makes a huge difference, and we'll show you what some of those numbers look like. So be aware of that one, the federal investment tax credit. Now, please understand, I am not a tax attorney or an accountant. We recommend that you talk to that person that guides you in these areas to see what you're eligible for and what will work for you. We do recognize that for some people, you may not have the tax appetite to be able to take advantage of this. If you're a senior citizen and you don't have that much income that you're going to pay taxes on, you may just not have that much ability to take full advantage of this, although this can be stretched out over a number of years. So it's possible. We'll recommend that for any of these that you talk to your tax consultant. New York State also offers a residential solar tax credit. Again, this is for homeowners, and again, it's for that 25 kW or less. That's where some of these limitations come in on the size of the solar install. But again, I mentioned a typical home is 5 to 10 kilowatts. So if you're above 25 kilowatts, or as a homeowner, you really should be thinking differently about some of these things. But it also can be for condo associations and cooperatives. And this is a 25% tax credit on the value of the system up to $5,000. And again, this one can also be spread out over multiple years. So again, something to talk to your tax consultant about. This is the one that is changing the most rapidly and going away the fastest, which is why we urge people to think quickly about this and take advantage of it, and I'll explain this. This is through NYSERDA, it's the New York Sun Incentive Program. And they're doing this based on a megawatt block incentive, and those blocks are continuing to decline. Now, it's saying it's available until 2023. At the rate these are going, it's probably not going to last for another year at this rate, going very quickly. This is how it's structured. Each one of those steps at a certain dollar level has a certain number of megawatts that the state is trying to get. So at the dollar per watt unit, they assigned 40 megawatts. That went immediately, just about immediately, stepped down. So each time it steps down, it's a 10-cent change in the incentive. We're currently at block 5. You can see how quickly these things are going. This program opened in January. So it is going quickly. I looked this afternoon. Block 5 was half filled already at the 60 cent a watt incentive. When we did this same presentation on the 30th of July at Wells, block 5 was only a little under 40% filled. So you can see it's going quickly. Unfortunately, I think some of the can be attributed to all these Solarize programs out there that are encouraging people to jump now and take advantage of it. That means these incentives fill up. And what possible difference can 10 cents a kilowatt make? Well, it can make a fair amount. Right now I mentioned that block 5 is at 60 cents per watt. Remember I told you a typical household size is 5 kilowatts. So 1 kilowatt equals 1,000 watts. 5 kilowatt would be 5,000 watts at 60 cents a watt. That means the incentive right now from the New York Sun megawatt block system would be $3,000. It goes directly to the installer to take off the cost, to reduce the price of your system. This is your money coming back to you, but you've got to take advantage of it. So if you wait till block 6 opens and it goes down to 50 cents a watt, that's $500 less that you will get back. So we encourage you to think quickly about this and move. Through the New York Sun Incentive Program, there are also a number of low-interest loan options. I'm not going to go into any of this. If you pick up this handout out on the table, it's sort of the 3rd and 4th pages in, details the loan and financial incentive programs. So take a look at that because again, there are really great financing options to help get, again, over the hurdle of these costs. So I mentioned that we've got federal incentives, we've got state incentives. There's something that the utilities have, I won't say they volunteered this, they were sort of engineered into doing this. The net metering, and this allows anybody with a solar energy system to send your grid tied, so you can send power out to the grid when you're making more than you need. And you can get credit for that excess generation. And you can apply it to when you're not generating as much, in those 3 months a year when your solar panels are getting a little covered or we're just not getting that much sun in the winter months. So the net metering allows you to flow energy back and forth with the utility. And how this works, just graphically, let's say we're in the morning, and the morning sun in the summertime, you're generating all the power that you need, and you're using it all up. That's great. How about the same afternoon on a nice sunny summer day when you're generating more than you can use? Well, in that case, you're sending electrons over to the utility to send out into the grid to fire up somebody's air conditioning system, and you are banking excess credits for that energy, that excess energy. And then at night, or again in the winter, when maybe you're not making as much, or it's a cloudy day, now those credits go back to the utility to cover the cost for what you don't make. And you can cover up to 100% of your load. So net metering is an important piece of this as well that makes this work. So this is just a snapshot of all of those incentives. The 30% federal tax credit, again, for residential and commercial customers. Again, it's going to expire the end of next year, which sounds like a long way out, but we still wouldn't suggest you wait for a couple of other reasons. The 25% New York State tax credit up to $5,000. We don't hear right now about any potential expiration of those tax credits, but this is New York State. And who knows what will happen when they get wise. The NYSERDA grant, though, that megawatt block program, this is going down steadily. So this is sort of free money that you can get, that you've paid into, and you can get it back, but you really need to move on this one. This is why you probably don't want to wait till the another year for the 30% federal tax credit to expire. To take advantage of that NYSERDA grant, the megawatt block program, you need to go quickly. New York State sales tax exemption, there is a 4% sales tax exemption in place on solar panel equipment. That's something the installers already factored into their price. There can be local sales tax exemptions on solar if the municipality allows it. Right now, nobody in Cayuga County is allowing that. You might want to have a conversation with your representative about that. Well, go back one. The property tax exemption, we talked about the value of your home going up with a solar system on it, but there is a 15-year exemption in terms of assessing you more for that. So you can put that solar energy system on your home, and not for 15 years, you're not going to see an increase in your assessment or your taxes on that. And then net metering, of course, allows you to flow excess generation back and forth between you and the utility. So this is, you can do this calculation for yourself if you want. There is a calculator on the New York Sun website, this Clean Power Estimator, and this is a system size of 7 kW, and this is at an average system cost of $3 a watt. Our folks are coming in right around there. So that would be a $21,000 system at $3 a watt for 7,000 watts. So you get that. But again, applying the incentives immediately, the New York megawatt block program immediately knocks $4,200 off the price. So the net price upon which the tax credits are going to be based gets it down to $16,800. And then the federal and state tax credits kick in. So you'll get about $5,000 back on your federal tax credit, 25% on your state tax credit is another $4,200. Your total savings for a 7,000 kilowatt system would be $13,440 in terms of all the savings. So after all the incentives are in place, you're going to see the net cost of about $7,500 for a $21,000 solar system. So I hope you're intrigued at least. What do you do now? Well, first you need to think about, do you want to own a system or do you want to have a third party own it, a lease agreement? You're probably seeing a lot of ads out, no money down, have a solar system on your house. We have both options through the Solarize program. Direct ownership, the cost benefit to this is you're going to bear the installed costs, absent all of the incentives that are in place. You'll still have some balance of system costs when it gets all done. You're going to have the maintenance of it, although these are solid state systems, there are no moving parts, so there isn't much maintenance to them, maybe brushing off snow if it's low, but it's not really, getting the leaves off them in the fall if they're piling up. You bear the risk. You own it, you bear the risk. But the benefit is you get all the avoided energy costs, you get all the excess generation, and you get all the incentives. Third-party ownership is a little different model. So you're the customer, and there's a developer involved in this, a leaseholder. And these are done through a power purchase agreement or a lease. And you get the power, they get your money, they get a flat rate every month to cover their costs. They're going to get the incentives in this case. You won't see them. But in this case, it's the developer has the cost outlay. That's why it's no money down, just a flat rate per month for the lease. But they often need a little higher return on investment than you might need to get for a direct purchase. And you do have, if you're planning to sell your home sometime in the next 25 years or however long the lease agreement is, you have to address that. But that's not insurmountable either. that can be done. Now the benefit to you is there's no upfront cost for you. Yes, it's no money down, they'll put a solar system on your roof. You will have the monthly lease payments to deal with, but it still should be less than what you're paying the utility now for supply. You don't have any operating or maintenance costs. Of course, they don't have any operating or maintenance costs either, because there just aren't many costs associated with it. But very low risk for you, and you get predictable payments out of it. So again, going back to the Solarize program. Solarize Cayuga and the Solarize CNY team has already done the first part. We've selected the installers for you through a competitive process, vetting process, and we're kind of educating you through these marketing and workshops. So you are here. And the next step, if you decide to do this, and it's entirely up to you, is to fill out one of the enrollment cards that are out on the table. And what that will do is sign you up to get a free, no obligation site assessment just to say whether your property, your home, your grounds really are right for solar. You may not be. If you're in the middle of a forest, solar may not be the right thing for you. And the installers can help you work through that. Or you may not be able to meet all of your demand with your particular situation. So, but this is up to you at this point. So if you sign up for one of those free no obligation assessments, they're going to follow up with you. This is why you're going to want to have your energy bill handy, because they're going to be drilling into what your annual usage is so they can figure out how big the system you'd have to be able to power your home. And they're going to be looking kind of a sky view like Google Earth, looking at what they can see of your property on the phone to say, yeah, I can't see your house. I don't think you're a good candidate for solar, unless you have an open yard somewhere here. But if you are, then they're going to come out, they're going to give you a quote, a first quote over the phone, but then they're going to give you a more detailed quote once they do an actual an on-site assessment. But all this is free, and you don't pay for any of this. You don't even pay for them to come out and look at your home on-site. They will also give you all the information about financing and costs for what the system would be. So again, this is in your hands at this point, but if you decide to sign a contract with one of our Solarize installers, they're going to deal with the nice sort of paperwork to get you that megawatt block incentive. They'll deal with all the permits, the interconnect work with the utilities, and it's generally fairly quick. And again, we're trying to push people on this short timeline to take advantage of those financial incentives. But these guys are moving quickly too to install a lot of systems in a short period of time. And if you decide to go the leasing, financing route, they'll help you out with that as well. So you've already done the first step. You came and you listened, and I appreciate that. The next step, again, entirely up to you, but if you want to proceed, you just sign one of those enrollment cards and sign up for the site assessment. And we would just ask you to spread the word to your friends and neighbors if you like what you heard. Let them take advantage of this opportunity too. And again, if you want to volunteer for the campaign, that would be great. So, open it up for questions. Yes, sir?
Is it true that the size of the system at the home can't be much larger than the average of the last 3 years of electricity used?
You can go 110% of your usage, but how do you, yeah.
We can also increase that. If you fill out a form, we can sort of justify what you'll be adding in terms of load. Let's say you can add electric cars. You document that you need to install the system, and you're allowed to go larger.
Everybody hear that? I'm gonna have our installer reps come down here too, because a lot of cases they can answer more technical questions.
So the question, I'll just repeat it real quick, was, is there a limit to how big your system can be based on what your history of electrical usage is? And the default is correct, and Now you're supposed to maintain 110%, but you can actually build the system larger if you indicate that on a simple form at the time that we're designing the system for you. If you're going to add an electric car or you're going to build an addition to your house, as long as you can document that and show that you're going to increase your usage, it is allowed, and it still is covered by the incentives based on as if that was your historical usage.
Does that include family size?
If you're going to have a bunch of teenagers showering in the house and you're going to have domestic hot water supplied by electricity, yes, add to your system in the beginning for sure.
The one thing they don't want to do is have you become a utility. So, yes, sir.
That's kind of a follow-up to that. I saw on the net metering that you can get up to 100% of your normal usage in a year. If you make more than that in the year, does it roll to the next year, or you get no benefit? You don't get paid by the utilities back. So all you're going to get is 100%, and that's about it. And is it a calendar year? Is it from install day to install? How does that work?
It's pretty simple. Basically, you don't build credits like rollover minutes with your cell phone company or something indefinitely. The way that it works is you produce power, and if you produce more than you make on a monthly basis, if you produce more than you use from the utility company in that month, then you bank a credit that month. What happens is you have an annual true-up date. You're allowed to set that once in the beginning of your system being in operation. Typically, we would recommend that it's in the spring so that you're able to use all the credits you build up over the summer and fall through the winter when you're not producing as much. And then in April, if you do have any on balance, they're paid out at a wholesale rate. They're not paid at the full retail rate for supply and delivery the way they would normally be throughout the year. They just give you a one-time, it's about 3 cents per kilowatt hour for any surplus that's above and beyond what you used yourself during the year. Is that clear?
Do we get that every year?
No.
If you produce more every year, than what you use, then it should give you.
On an older home, have you found, how heavy are these systems? You know, do you need a reinforced roof to support them?
He was asking what's the weight of the solar panels, and generally speaking, they put the same amount of weight on the roof as a single layer of shingles. So if your roof can support another single layer of shingles, you'd have no problem adding solar panels to the roof.
One of the questions on the enrollment form you will see is it's asked, what's the age of your roof? And it doesn't preclude you from putting solar on an older roof, but again, this is something going on for at least 25 years, so you might want to think about that, and these guys will do an assessment of your roof condition
When you
too.
say the age of the roof, you're talking about the age of the shingles or the age of the understructure?
The age of the shingles.
And we look at all of that.
Because I've got a house that's 100 years old, you know, it's solid, but, you know,
Yeah,
somebody would have to evaluate whether they,
yeah, that's something that we both do as part of that. Permitting sometimes requires engineering stamps, it all depends on the municipality, typically it's really strict. As far as their permitting process, other municipalities are like, yeah, we don't care, here you go. So it just kind of all depends, that's all something that we all handle.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
In terms of financing, are they applying through you guys, are they applying through their own banks, or are they doing
That's both.
Yes.
Both. I mean, you can pursue any type of financing that you feel like you can get based on either an existing relationship with the bank, or we can connect you with either an unsecured loan product or a home equity loan product your banks will work with. That's just similar.
Well, I would feel something like that would be nice for the home, so I was just.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
How that works.
Yep.
Agreed.
There was a question way in the back. Shall we?
Typical maintenance costs, what's covered under warranty, these panels, I think I heard 25 years they last. So what can, if I were to buy a direct system, what can I expect to have to replace, if anything?
The panels are warranted for 25 years from both companies.
Okay.
The one thing that might go earlier